In my 35 years on the bench here in Providence, Rhode Island, I have presided over thousands of cases, tens of thousands, if I am being precise, and in all of that time I have developed what I believe is a reliable sense of when a case is going to ask something extraordinary of me, not legally, humanly. There are mornings when I walk through those courthouse doors and something in the air of that building tells me that today is going to require more than procedure, more than precedent. Today is going to require everything I have as a human being. The morning I met Sarah Callahan was one of those mornings. And my friends, if you stay with me through every word of this story, I promise you it will remind you why we must never, never stop fighting for the people who fight for us. Subscribe to this channel right now because this is the story I am most grateful this bench ever gave me. I want to tell you about the docket first, because context matters. It was a Monday morning in November, one of those gray Providence November mornings where the sky sits low and heavy over the city, and the courthouse feels like the warmest room in the world by comparison. We had a full session, 14 cases scheduled, traffic violations mostly, a few parking infractions, the ordinary business of a municipal court in a working New England city. Sarah Callahan was ninth on the docket, 2 unpaid parking violations on Smith Street. Combined total, $54. That was all the paper told me, $54. I have been taught by 35 years of human beings standing before me, that the paper never tells the whole story. The paper is just the door. What matters is what is on the other side of it. Inspector Quinn called her name when her turn came, and a woman walked up to my bench who I want to describe to you as carefully as I can because the details matter. She was perhaps 34, 35 years old, slight build. She was wearing a dark blue sweater and slacks that were clean and pressed with obvious care. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was composed in the particular way that people compose their faces when they are working very hard to hold themselves together in a public place. Not quite a smile, not distress. Something precise and effortful in between. She was carrying a manila envelope, holding it with both hands slightly in front of her, the way people hold things that contain important documents, the way people hold things that matter. And at her side, holding her left hand with both of his small ones, was a boy, 7, perhaps 8 years old, dark hair, his father's eyes I would learn later. He was wearing a collared shirt that was slightly too big for him, clearly chosen for the occasion, and he was looking at me with the grave, watchful attention of a child who understands that something serious is happening even if he cannot name all the pieces of it. I said, as I always say, "Good morning." She said, "Good morning, Your Honor." Her voice was steady, controlled, the voice of someone who had rehearsed steadiness. I looked at the boy. I said, "And good morning to you, young man. What is your name?" He looked at his mother briefly, then back at me. "James," he said. "James Callahan." "That is a fine name," I said, and I meant it completely. Now subscribe to this channel right now if you haven't already and hit that like button, because what I am about to tell you about Sarah Callahan and why she was standing in my courtroom on a November Monday is going to reach somewhere deep inside you. Something in my gut, something honed over decades of this work, was already telling me that the $54 on that docket was not the story, not even close to the story. Keep watching. I looked at Sarah Callahan and I said, in the same gentle way I open every conversation, "Can you tell me about these violations, Ms. Callahan?" Smith Street, both of them from last spring. She nodded. She had clearly prepared for this question. "Yes, Your Honor. Both tickets were issued while I was at the VA clinic on Duval Street. I was trying to navigate the parking situation there. There was construction on the main lot and I parked on Smith Street without fully understanding the restrictions. I know that doesn't excuse the violation. I should have read the signs more carefully. I noticed that she did not offer the VA clinic as an excuse. She mentioned it as context and then immediately accepted responsibility. That is not a small thing. Most people lead with the context and let it do the work of absolution. She led with accountability. I noticed that. "You were at the VA clinic," I said. "Are you a veteran, Miss Callahan?" She held the manila envelope slightly tighter. "No, Your Honor, my husband was." Was, past tense, the quietest word in the English language when it carries that particular weight. I waited. I did not rush. I have learned that silence, offered with care, is one of the most useful tools this bench provides. She looked at the boy, James, just for a moment. Then she looked back at me. "My husband was Sergeant Daniel Callahan, United States Marine Corps. He served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He came home, Your Honor. He came home." A breath. "But the injuries he carried home with him, the ones you can't see in a photograph, those took him from us 14 months ago. He passed from complications related to his service." James was 6 when his father died. The courtroom was so still I could hear the ventilation system in the ceiling. I looked at James Callahan, 7 years old, in his too big collared shirt, holding his mother's hand. I looked at Sarah Callahan, holding her manila envelope and her composure with equal and visible effort, and I felt something move through me that I cannot fully name. Grief for people I had just met. Rage, quiet and cold, at the particular injustice of a man surviving war only to be taken by its aftermath. Profound, overwhelming admiration for the woman standing in front of me who had clearly been carrying a weight that would have flattened most people and was still standing, still pressing her son's shirts, still showing up. My throat tightened. I pressed my hands flat on my desk. Before I tell you what I did next, before I tell you what was in that manila envelope and what it revealed about the situation Sarah Callahan was actually facing, I need you to share this video right now. Share it with every person you know who has ever loved someone in uniform. Share it with every Gold Star family. Share it with everyone who believes that the debt this country owes its military families is not paid with a flag at a funeral. This story belongs to all of them. Keep watching. I said very carefully, Ms. Callahan, I want to understand your full situation if you're willing to share it. You mentioned you were at the VA clinic. Are you still navigating things related to your husband's service? She looked at me for a moment. I could see her making a decision. The specific decision about how much to offer, how much to trust, how much of the private weight of her life to carry into this room. I have seen that decision being made many times. I try always to make myself worthy of whatever choice the person makes. She opened the manila envelope. I brought these because I thought you might need to see them, Your Honor, she said. I wasn't sure, but I wanted to be prepared. She placed several documents on the edge of the defendant's stand. The first is a letter from our landlord. We are behind on rent. 3 months. The survivor benefits from the VA have been delayed due to a processing backlog. I have been working part-time because James has medical needs that require me to be available, and the income gap has been significant. The landlord has filed for eviction. The hearing is in 3 weeks. She placed a second document beside the first. This is from the VA explaining the backlog. They acknowledge the delay. They have not resolved it. She placed a third. This is from James's pediatric specialist. He has a condition that requires regular treatment. It is managed. He is doing well, but the appointments and the medications have created additional financial strain. She folded her hands over the now empty envelope. I am not here to ask for special treatment, Your Honor. I know these are parking tickets. I know that is what this court handles. I wanted you to know who you were talking to. Daniel always said that when you stand before someone with authority, you tell them the truth. All of it. Her voice held steady through every word of that, every single word. What am I going to do with you, Sarah Callahan? I knew the answer to that question with a clarity I have rarely felt in 35 years on this bench. But what I was about to do, what I needed to do, went beyond anything the parking violations required. And my friends, I want you to understand something. I am a municipal court judge in Providence, Rhode Island. I handle traffic and parking matters. I am not a housing court. I am not a veterans benefits administrator. I am not a social services agency, but I am a human being. And I have been given over 35 years a platform and a presence and a network in this city that extends well beyond the walls of this one courtroom. And sometimes, the right use of this bench is not purely judicial. Sometimes it is connective. Sometimes it is the obligation to see a gap between what the law can do and what a person needs, and to use every resource available to bridge it. I looked at Inspector Quinn. I said, I need to take a brief recess. Inspector Quinn did not hesitate. He understood. He always understands. He called the recess, and I asked him to come to the bench, and I spoke quietly and quickly with him about 2 specific organizations, a veterans support nonprofit that I knew operated in Providence, and a housing assistance program connected to the city that I had referred cases to before. I asked him to make 2 phone calls while I addressed the courtroom. Then I looked at Sarah Callahan, who was watching me with an expression I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Not hope, exactly, something more careful than hope, something that has been disappointed enough times that it does not fully trust itself to hope yet, but watching, alert, present. I leaned forward and I spoke to her directly, and I am going to give you every word because every word was chosen. Ms. Callahan, I said, these parking violations are dismissed, both of them, completely. There is no fine, no fee, no balance of any kind owed to this court by you today or ever for these citations. I heard the gallery stir. I held up one hand. But I want to say something more, and I need you to hear it. What your husband did, what Daniel did, was a sacred act of service to every person in this building, including me. What you have done since you lost him, the way you have carried your family, the way you have shown up for that boy, the way you walked into this courtroom today with the truth in your hands instead of excuses, that is also a sacred act. That is courage of a different kind, and it deserves to be honored. James Callahan was looking at me with those watchful eyes. I looked at him directly and I said, "Your daddy was a hero, James, and your mama is too. I hope you know that." Something broke in Sarah Callahan's face, not dramatically, just the way ice breaks in March, quietly, at the edges first, and then all at once. She pressed her lips together and her eyes filled and she nodded, and I could see her holding James's hand tighter, and I could see him press himself slightly against her side the way children do when they sense that something important and overwhelming is moving through the people they love. Hit that like button right now if you are feeling what that courtroom felt in that moment. Subscribe to this channel and share this video, because what Inspector Quinn was doing during that recess and what it produced for Sarah Callahan in the weeks that followed is something I want every person watching this to hear. Keep watching. Inspector Quinn returned to the bench quietly while I continued addressing the session. He leaned in and confirmed both calls had been made, both organizations had agreed to immediate contact, and one had a same-day availability for a case assessment. He slipped me a card with 2 names and numbers written on it in his precise handwriting. After the session concluded and the gallery had largely cleared, I asked Inspector Quinn to bring Sarah Callahan and James back to the bench. She came forward with that same careful composure, James still beside her. I handed her the card. "These are 2 organizations that help veterans' families specifically," I said. "The first works directly with VA benefit delays. They have advocates who can often expedite cases like yours. The second is connected to city housing assistance and has experience with exactly the situation you described with your landlord. I have made calls. They are expecting to hear from you today. Will you call them today?" She looked at the card. Her hands were shaking now just slightly. The composure had come down another layer. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Your Honor, I will call them today." "Good," I said. "You should not be navigating this alone. Nobody should navigate this alone, but especially not you." I paused. "Daniel served so that people in this country would have institutions that take care of them. Let the institutions do their job. Let people help you. You have earned it 100 times over," she said in a voice so quiet it was almost just breath. "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," I said. "You came in here with the truth. That is all the thanks this bench ever needs." I looked at James. "You take care of your mom, all right? I can see that you already do. Keep it up." James Callahan looked at me with those serious eyes and he said, "My dad said taking care of the people you love is the most important job there is." I had to pause for a moment, a long moment. I pressed my lips together and I nodded slowly, and I thought about Daniel Callahan, a man I never met, a Marine who came home from Afghanistan carrying wounds I will never fully understand, and I thought about the fact that he had somehow, in the middle of everything he was carrying, found the time and the clarity and the love to teach his son that, to plant that in him, so that it would grow after he was gone. That is legacy. That is the truest form of it. "Your dad was right," I said to James. "Don't you ever forget that he told you that." My friends, if you have tears right now, if this story has reached somewhere inside you that you were not expecting, leave a comment below. Tell me about the veterans in your life. Tell me about the families who have paid a price that most of us will never be asked to pay. Tell me their names. Let us say their names right here, in these comments, because they deserve to be spoken. Subscribe to this channel and share this video with every person you know who loves someone who served. This story belongs to them. Now let me tell you what happened in the months that followed, because this story has an ending that I need you to hear. The Veterans Advocacy Organization moved quickly on Sarah Callahan's VA benefits case. Within 6 weeks, the backlog processing had been escalated and a determination was reached. The survivor benefits, the full amount, including the delayed months, were issued. The housing assistance program intervened in the eviction proceeding, negotiated with the landlord, and the eviction was withdrawn. Sarah Callahan and James stayed in their home. I learned all of this not from an official report but from a letter. A handwritten letter, 3 pages, that arrived at the courthouse about 4 months after that November Monday. She wrote about the benefits being resolved. She wrote about the eviction being dropped. She wrote about James, who had started a new school year and was doing well, who had joined a youth baseball league, who had, she said, told his coach on the first day of practice that his father was a Marine and his mother was a hero. His mother was a hero. I read that line 3 times. I read the whole letter twice, and then I sat in my chambers for a few minutes, just sitting quietly, the way I sometimes do when something has arrived that is bigger than my immediate capacity to hold it. I thought about what it means to serve, not just in uniform, though God bless every person who puts one on, but in all the forms that service takes. The service of showing up to a courtroom with the truth in your hands when the world has given you every reason to give up. The service of pressing your son's shirt and holding his hand and teaching him, by example, every single day, that love means staying. That love means enduring. That love means you keep going even when keeping going costs you more than you thought you had. Sarah Callahan taught me something in that courtroom. She reminded me that the people who need this bench most are often the people least likely to ask for what they actually need. They come in with their parking tickets, their $54, their composure held together with everything they have, and they wait to see if the person across from them is going to see them, really see them, or just process the paper in front of them. I try to see them. Every single morning I try. That is the job my father taught me without ever using the word justice. He taught me by the way he treated the man who delivered his mail and the way he stood when an elderly woman entered a room and the way he looked at every human being he encountered as though they were carrying something important that deserved his respect. He came from Italy with nothing, and he gave me everything. And the greatest thing he gave me was this: the absolute conviction that every person standing before you is worth the full weight of your attention. Sarah Callahan was worth it. Daniel Callahan was worth it. James Callahan is worth every good thing this world has to offer. Tell me in the comments what this story meant to you today. Tell me what you would have done in my chair. And subscribe to this channel, share this video, because these stories and these real human, extraordinary stories deserve to travel as far as they can go. There are people watching right now who need to know that someone in this world will see them. Let this story be that for them. God bless our veterans. God bless the families who love them and grieve them and carry them forward. God bless Sarah and James Callahan, wherever this day finds them. And God bless every single one of you for watching, for caring, for believing that justice and mercy belong in the same room. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and never ever stop showing up, because I promise you, nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what walked through those courtroom doors the very next morning.